They thought we were primitives. When the Zephyrian Empire's Golden Fleet descended from the stars, their scanners detected stone cities, wooden ships, and what appeared to be a species barely past its industrial age. Earth looked defenseless, ripe for conquest, another easy addition to their galactic domain. The aliens broadcast their ultimatum across every frequency: submit or face annihilation. But humanity had a secret buried beneath the Pacific Ocean, sleeping in the crushing depths where no alien scanner could penetrate. A secret that would turn first contact into humanity's greatest revelation and the galaxy's most terrifying awakening. What the Zephyrians didn't know was that humans had been preparing for this moment for over a century, and when they finally saw what lurked beneath Earth's waters, their confident smiles would transform into something else entirely. Terror. The morning sky above Earth's major cities erupted in golden light as massive ships descended through the atmosphere. Dr. Sarah Chen pressed her face against the window of the International Space Monitoring Station, watching in stunned silence as vessels the size of Manhattan's skyline positioned themselves over London, New York, Tokyo, and Moscow. The ships were beautiful in their alien design, with flowing curves that seemed to bend light around them and surfaces that shimmered like liquid gold. "My God," whispered her colleague, Dr. Martinez, his coffee mug forgotten in his trembling hands. "They're real. After all these years of searching, they came to us." Sarah's excitement quickly turned to dread as the ships began transmitting. Every radio frequency, every television channel, every internet connection on Earth suddenly carried the same message. The voice was melodious but cold, speaking in perfect English before switching to other languages with mechanical precision. "Inhabitants of the third planet, you are now under the protection of the Zephyrian Empire. Your species has been evaluated and found suitable for integration into our galactic society. You have 72 hours to surrender your weapons and submit to Imperial authority. Resistance will be met with total annihilation. This message is being broadcast to ensure understanding across your various tribes and nations." The transmission ended, leaving Earth in stunned silence for exactly 37 seconds before chaos erupted worldwide. Sarah watched the news feeds streaming across her monitors. Panic gripped every major city as people fled their homes, governments scrambled to respond, and military forces around the world went to high alert. She could see fighter jets rising from air bases, looking like insects next to the colossal alien vessels that hung motionless in the sky. "Look at this," Dr. Martinez called out, pointing at his analysis screen. "Their ships aren't just sitting there. They're scanning everything. Ground-penetrating radar, electromagnetic sweeps. The works. They're mapping our entire planet." Sarah frowned as she studied the data. The scan patterns were thorough, but seemed oddly focused on surface and near-surface features. Deep ocean scanning appeared minimal, almost cursory. That's strange. Why wouldn't they want complete coverage? Down on Earth, President Morrison sat in the emergency bunker beneath the White House, surrounded by military advisors and world leaders, connected via secure video links. General Harrison, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, spread holographic displays showing the alien ships across the briefing table. "Madam President, our conventional forces are useless against technology like this," Harrison admitted grimly. "These ships measure over 15 kilometers in length. Our most powerful nuclear weapons might scratch their hulls." "What about the projects?" asked Director Williams from the shadows. As head of humanity's most classified programs, Williams rarely spoke in these meetings, but when he did, everyone listened. Morrison nodded slowly. "Are they ready? The deep installations have been on standby for 30 years. Project Leviathan has been waiting for exactly this scenario." Williams's voice carried a weight that made even hardened generals shift uncomfortably. President Morrison's expression hardened as she made a decision that would change everything. "Activate Leviathan protocols. Send the awakening signal, 3 miles beneath the Pacific Ocean. In a chasm so deep that sunlight had never touched its walls, something ancient stirred. Warning lights that had remained dark for decades suddenly blazed to life in corridors filled with recycled air. Computer systems that had run on minimal power for 30 years began their full startup sequences. Commander Elena Vasquez felt the vibration through the deck plating before she heard the klaxons. After 3 decades of waiting in the deep black, the call had finally come. She moved through corridors lined with hibernation pods as her crew began their awakening procedures. "All stations, this is command. Leviathan protocol is now active. Begin revival sequence immediately. Her voice echoed through the massive vessel as thousands of crew members emerged from their long sleep. Chief Engineer Reynolds was among the first to reach his station, muscle memory guiding him despite 3 decades of hibernation. His hands flew over control panels that he could operate blindfolded, Reactor 1 coming online, Reactor 2 following suit. All systems showing green across the board. The ship that began to wake in those crushing depths defied every law of physics that humanity had known before the secret discovery in 2157. When mining operations in the Mariana Trench had uncovered the alien wreckage, everything changed. The technology inside that crashed vessel had been reverse-engineered and improved upon for over a century. Navigator Singh brought up holographic displays showing their position relative to the alien fleet above. Surface contacts confirmed. 15 alien vessels in standard occupation formation. They have no idea we're here. Of course they don't. Commander Vasquez replied with grim satisfaction. Their scanners can't penetrate this depth, and our hull composition makes us invisible to their technology. We learned that from studying their predecessors. Weapons Officer Chen ran diagnostics on systems that had never been tested in actual combat. All weapon systems operational. Plasma cannon arrays charged and ready. Quantum torpedoes loaded. Defensive shield generators at full power. The ship itself was a marvel that combined human engineering with alien technology. At 12 kilometers in length, it was nearly as large as the Zephyrian vessels above. But where their ships prioritized intimidation, humanity's Titangent-class battleship was built for one purpose: war. Above them, the Zephyrian Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Divine Conquest, reviewing the primitive planet below. His species had conquered over 300 worlds, and Earth appeared to be among the least challenging. The scans showed crude nuclear technology, chemical rockets, and metal alloys that his civilization had abandoned millennia ago. Admiral, we're detecting increased electromagnetic activity from their military installations, reported his communications officer. Should we interpret this as preparation for resistance? Kethvar's mandibles clicked in amusement. Let them prepare. Their weapons cannot pierce our shields. If they choose to resist, we'll make an example of one of their cities to encourage the others to comply. What the Admiral didn't know was that Earth's surface military was indeed primitive by design. For over a century, humanity had maintained the appearance of a developing civilization, while pouring resources into deep ocean installations and space-based construction facilities hidden in asteroid fields. The real revelation came from studying the crashed alien vessel. Humanity discovered that interstellar civilizations typically scanned planets from orbit, focusing on surface and atmospheric conditions, while ignoring the deep ocean depths that were hostile to most species. Earth's oceans provided the perfect hiding place for humanity's true defensive capabilities. President Morrison received confirmation that Leviathan was fully operational. Commander Vasquez reports ready for surface operations, Madam President. All systems green. And the secondary installations? Director Williams consulted his encrypted display. Atlantic Deep Station reports operational. Arctic installation is powered up and ready. The asteroid belt facility confirms weapon platforms are armed and targeting solutions are locked. Morrison took a deep breath. Earth's response to the alien ultimatum wouldn't be the surrender they expected. Send the response transmission. Admiral Kethvar received Earth's reply exactly 71 hours and 59 minutes after his ultimatum. He expected either complete surrender or defiant, but futile resistance. Instead, he heard something that made his blood run cold. Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire, this is President Morrison of Earth. Your ultimatum has been received and considered. We respectfully decline your offer of protection and integration into your empire. We also suggest that you immediately withdraw from our solar system. Kethvar's mandibles flared in anger. Impossible. These primitives dare to threaten us? Furthermore, the transmission continued. Any hostile action against Earth or its inhabitants will be met with immediate and overwhelming retaliation. You have underestimated our capabilities, Admiral. We strongly advise reconsidering your position. The alien commander's fury was interrupted by urgent reports from his sensor operators. Admiral, we're detecting massive energy signatures rising from the planet's oceans. Something enormous is surfacing. 3 miles beneath the Pacific, Commander Vasquez gave the order that humanity had been preparing to give for a century. Surface the ship. Let them see what they're really facing. The ocean above began to churn and boil as something impossible rose from the depths. Water displaced by the ascending vessel created waves that could be seen from orbit. The Zephyrian ship's sensors went wild as readings that should have been impossible flooded their displays. Admiral Kethvar watched in growing horror as a ship nearly the size of his own flagship breached the ocean surface. But this wasn't just any ship. The vessel rising from Earth's depths was clearly built with technology that matched or exceeded his own. Its hull gleamed with the same energy patterns as Zephyrian armor, but the design was alien to anything in his Empire's databases. "How is this possible?" he whispered. "Our preliminary scans showed no such technology." His science officer's voice shook with confusion and fear. "Admiral, that vessel is emitting energy signatures consistent with quantum-level manipulations. Its power output exceeds our flagship by 30%. And sir, there are more energy readings coming from other ocean locations." As Commander Vasquez brought her ship to the surface, she opened communication channels that reached beyond Earth's atmosphere. "Admiral Kethvar, allow me to introduce humanity's true face. You are looking at the UES Titan, humanity's first Tangent-class battleship. We've been waiting for visitors like you for quite some time." The Titan's massive form displaced thousands of tons of water as it fully surfaced, its hull gleaming with adaptive armor that shifted and flowed like liquid metal. Weapon ports that had been sealed for decades opened along its length, revealing plasma cannon arrays that could vaporize mountains. "You see, Commander," Vasquez continued, "Earth has been visited before. About 130 years ago, another species tried to conquer us. We learned much from studying their wreckage." Admiral Kethvar's worst fears were confirmed as his tactical officer provided analysis of the human vessel. "Sir, preliminary scans suggest this ship could engage our entire fleet simultaneously. Its shield harmonics are unlike anything in our databases, and its weapon configurations appear to be based on technologies from the Lost Expedition." The Lost Expedition. 3 centuries ago, a Zephyrian deep space exploration fleet had vanished without a trace in this sector of the galaxy. No wreckage had ever been found, no distress signals received. The 12 ships and their crews had simply disappeared. Commander Vasquez could see the alien ship's energy patterns shifting as they powered up weapons and defensive systems. "Admiral, I wouldn't recommend that course of action. We've had over a century to study Zephyrian technology and develop countermeasures. Your weapons will be ineffective, and any hostile action will force us to defend ourselves." The alien admiral found himself in an impossible situation. His empire had never encountered a primitive world with advanced technology. The standard protocols assumed technological superiority, but Earth had somehow hidden capabilities that rivaled his own fleet. "Admiral," his communication officer reported, "we're receiving additional signals from across the planet. There appear to be more installations coming online." Commander Vasquez watched her tactical displays as sister installations around Earth began revealing themselves. "Admiral, the Titan is not alone. Earth has been preparing for this day since your predecessors made the mistake of underestimating us." From the Arctic Ocean, another massive shape began breaking through ice sheets that were kilometers thick. The UES Kraken emerged from polar waters, its hull crackling with electrical discharges that could disrupt any known shielding technology. In the Atlantic, near the Puerto Rico Trench, the UES Leviathan itself rose from depths that should have crushed any vessel not specifically designed to withstand such pressure. This flagship of humanity's deep fleet was even larger than the Titan. Armed with experimental weapons derived from multiple alien technologies, Admiral Kethvar realized with growing dread that Earth's primitive appearance had been entirely deliberate. These humans had not only hidden their true capabilities but had spent over a century preparing specifically for another alien invasion. "Admiral," Commander Vasquez said, her voice now carrying an edge that promised swift and terrible action. "You have 5 minutes to begin withdrawing from our system. Any delay will be interpreted as a hostile act." The Zephyrian admiral looked at his tactical displays showing human ships that could match his own technology emerging from hiding places across the planet. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Kethvar faced an enemy that was not only his equal, but had specifically prepared to fight his kind. The hunters had become the hunted, and Earth's secret was finally revealed. Admiral Kethvar's mandibles trembled as he processed the impossible situation unfolding before his fleet. The primitive world that should have surrendered without resistance had just revealed technology that rivaled the greatest achievements of the Zephyrian Empire. His tactical officers scrambled to understand how Earth had hidden such massive installations from their advanced scanning systems. "Admiral," his science officer called out, voice tight with confusion, "I'm detecting quantum signature dampeners embedded throughout their ocean floors. This technology is preventing our scanners from penetrating beyond shallow depths. Sir, they've essentially made their planet's depths invisible to us." The implications hit Kethvar like a physical blow. Earth hadn't simply hidden their technology. They had specifically designed countermeasures against Zephyrian scanning methods. This level of preparation suggested they had studied his species' capabilities in detail for an extended period. "Analysis of the lost expedition records, immediately," he ordered. "Cross-reference, with current human technology signatures." While his crew worked frantically to understand their situation, Admiral Kethvar opened a direct channel to the human vessel. "Commander Vasquez, I am Admiral Kethvar of the Divine Conquest. Your claims regarding the lost expedition require clarification. The Zephyrian Empire demands answers." Commander Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UES Titan, watching through reinforced viewports as her ship's adaptive hull adjusted to surface conditions. The artificial gravity systems compensated perfectly for the transition from deep ocean pressure to surface operations. Around her, crew members who had spent 3 decades in hibernation worked with practiced efficiency at stations designed using alien technology. "Admiral," she replied, "I'm transmitting historical records now. Perhaps you should review them before making any more demands." The data package that reached Kethvar's ship contained detailed documentation spanning over a century of human development. What he read made his worst fears seem optimistic by comparison. In 2157, human deep-sea mining operations in the Mariana Trench had discovered wreckage from 12 Zephyrian vessels buried in sediment layers. The crash had occurred nearly 200 years earlier, during what Zephyrians called the Lost Expedition. Instead of reporting the discovery publicly, Earth's governments had classified the find at the highest levels and begun an intensive study program. Dr. Emily Richardson, the lead xenoarchaeologist on the recovery team, had spent her entire career studying the wreckage. Her final report, included in the transmission to Admiral Kethvar, detailed how humanity had reverse-engineered Zephyrian technology while improving upon its fundamental designs. The alien vessels showed evidence of catastrophic system failures, Richardson's report stated. Their quantum-level technologies were impressive but suffered from critical stability issues. Human engineering principles, applied to their discoveries, resulted in more reliable and efficient systems. Admiral Kethvar read with growing alarm how humans had not merely copied Zephyrian technology but had enhanced it. The quantum manipulation systems that powered their ships were more stable than anything his empire had developed. Their shield harmonics could adapt to incoming weapons fire in real time. Most disturbing of all, their plasma-based weaponry operated at energy levels that exceeded Zephyrian safety protocols. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "analysis of the human vessels suggests they've solved several engineering problems that our civilization has struggled with for centuries. Their power-to-weight ratios are impossible according to our understanding of quantum mechanics." The explanation came in the next section of the human data package. Earth's scientists hadn't just studied Zephyrian technology. They had encountered remnants from multiple alien civilizations over the past century. Each discovery had added to humanity's understanding of advanced physics and engineering. Commander Vasquez watched her tactical display showing the alien fleet's growing agitation. Energy patterns from their ships indicated weapons charging and defensive postures being assumed. "Admiral," she transmitted, "I suggest you continue reading before making any tactical decisions. Section 7 details why resistance would be inadvisable. Section 7 contained specifications for humanity's defensive capabilities that made Admiral Kethvar's blood run cold. Earth hadn't just built ships. They had created an integrated defense network that spanned their solar system. Hidden installations in asteroid belts, on moons, and throughout the outer planets had been armed with weapons designed specifically to counter Zephyrian technology. The human defensive strategy was breathtakingly comprehensive. Long-range sensor networks could detect approaching fleets weeks before arrival. Automated weapon platforms hidden throughout the solar system could engage targets from multiple angles simultaneously. Most terrifying of all, Earth's weapons had been designed to disrupt the quantum-level technologies that Zephyrian ships depended upon for basic operations. Impossible, whispered Science Officer Veltar as he reviewed the human technical specifications. They've created quantum disruptor fields that would collapse our ship's primary systems. Admiral, if these specifications are accurate, their weapons could disable us without causing physical damage to our hulls. Admiral Kethvar realized that his fleet wasn't just outgunned. They were facing an enemy that had studied Zephyrian weaknesses for over a century and developed specific countermeasures. How long have they been preparing for our arrival? Commander Vasquez answered as if she had heard his thoughts. Admiral, Earth's defensive preparations began the day we discovered your lost expedition. Every year since then, we've refined our understanding of your technology and improved our countermeasures. We've been ready for this encounter for quite some time. The historical records continued with details that explained how humanity had maintained their primitive appearance while building one of the most advanced military forces in their region of the galaxy. Surface installations were deliberately kept at early industrial levels to avoid attracting attention from deep space scanning operations. Meanwhile, underwater and underground facilities had been expanded using revolutionary construction techniques derived from multiple alien technologies. The deep ocean installations were marvels of engineering that combined human innovation with alien technology. Massive manufacturing centers operated in trenches where water pressure would crush conventional vessels. Automated mining systems extracted materials from the ocean floor, while carefully designed environmental systems prevented any disruption to surface ecosystems. Most impressive were the shipyard facilities buried beneath Antarctic ice sheets. Here, in caverns carved from solid rock using plasma-based excavation systems, humanity had constructed their Tangent-class battleships. Each vessel represented decades of accumulated knowledge from studying alien wreckage and required resources extracted from across the solar system. Admiral, Navigation Officer Dexlar reported nervously. I'm detecting movement from additional installations across the planet. Sir, I count at least 12 major facilities coming online, and sensors are suggesting there may be more that remain hidden. Commander Vasquez verified the report from her own tactical systems. Earth's defensive network was revealing itself systematically, each installation designed to demonstrate humanity's true capabilities while maintaining strategic reserves. Admiral, what you're observing represents approximately 15% of Earth's total defensive capability. The remaining 85% remains classified for obvious reasons. The psychological effect on the Zephyrian fleet was precisely what human strategists had intended. By revealing their capabilities gradually, Earth was demonstrating not only their technological superiority but their thorough preparation for exactly this type of encounter. Admiral Kethvar found himself in an impossible position. His empire's standard protocols required immediate subjugation of resistant worlds, but those protocols assumed technological and tactical superiority. Earth had not only matched Zephyrian capabilities but had specifically prepared to counter their advantages. Admiral, Communications Officer Rillan reported, with barely controlled fear. We're receiving data streams from multiple human installations. They're providing targeting information that suggests they have firing solutions on our entire fleet. The tactical displays showed the terrifying reality of Earth's defensive posture. Human installations weren't just revealing themselves. They were demonstrating their ability to coordinate attacks across vast distances. Quantum communication networks allowed instantaneous coordination between installations on opposite sides of the planet. Commander Vasquez watched the alien ship's energy signatures as their crews struggled to process the information they were receiving. Admiral, Earth's defensive philosophy differs significantly from your Empire's standard approaches. We don't rely on individual ship superiority. Our strategy involves coordinated response from multiple platforms designed to function as a unified system. The implications were staggering. Where Zephyrian fleets operated as collections of powerful but independent vessels, Earth's defenses functioned as a single, integrated weapon system. Individual installations could coordinate their fire to overwhelm even the most advanced shields, while backup systems ensured that destroying one facility would only marginally impact overall defensive capability. Admiral, Science Officer, Veltar said quietly. Their quantum communication networks are operating at efficiency levels that exceed our theoretical maximums. Sir, They've apparently solved several fundamental problems in faster-than-light communication that our best scientists consider impossible. The revelation continued with details about Earth's space-based installations. Hidden construction facilities and asteroid belts had been building defensive platforms for decades. These installations could move throughout the solar system, making them impossible to target systematically. Automated manufacturing systems allowed them to replace lost platforms faster than most fleets could destroy them. Admiral Kethvar realized that Earth represented something his empire had never encountered. A civilization that had specifically prepared for invasion by a more advanced species. Their defensive strategies weren't based on matching alien technology but on exploiting weaknesses in standard Imperial tactics. "Commander Vasquez," he transmitted, his voice carefully controlled despite his growing alarm. "Your defensive preparations are impressive. However, the Zephyrian Empire commands resources across multiple star systems. What you see here represents only a small fraction of our total military capability." Commander Vasquez smiled grimly as she prepared humanity's final revelation. "Admiral, we're well aware of your empire's size and capabilities. We've been monitoring your communications networks for over 50 years. We know about your fleet dispositions, your manufacturing capabilities, and your strategic reserves." The human data package continued with intelligence reports that made Admiral Kethvar's heart skip several beats. Earth hadn't just prepared defenses. They had been conducting deep space reconnaissance operations throughout Zephyrian territory for decades. Small, stealthed vessels had infiltrated Imperial space and gathered comprehensive intelligence on military installations, ship movements, and strategic planning. "How?" whispered Admiral Kethvar as he reviewed surveillance reports detailing classified Imperial operations. "Zephyrian quantum communication networks operate on predictable frequencies," Commander Vasquez explained. "Once we understood your technology, intercepting your transmissions became a routine intelligence-gathering operation. We've been listening to your Empire's communications for quite some time. The psychological impact on the Zephyrian crew was devastating. Their supposedly secure communication networks had been compromised for decades. Earth knew details about Imperial operations that were classified at the highest levels. Human intelligence networks had penetrated deep into Zephyrian space without detection. Admiral Kethvar looked at his tactical displays showing human installations continuing to come online around the planet. Each new facility revealed capabilities that exceeded Imperial standards. The primitive world his fleet had come to conquer was actually one of the most advanced civilizations they had ever encountered. "Admiral," Commander Vasquez transmitted, "Earth extends an offer of peaceful coexistence between our civilizations. We have no interest in expanding beyond our solar system, but we will defend our territory against any threats. The choice of how this encounter proceeds rests entirely with you." Admiral Kethvar stood frozen on his command deck, processing the impossible reality that his empire's greatest military expedition had become a diplomatic crisis. The primitive world they had come to conquer was offering coexistence from a position of overwhelming technological superiority. For the first time in his 3 centuries of military service, the Admiral faced an enemy that had prepared specifically for his kind. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported with barely controlled panic. "Long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures throughout the outer solar system. Sir, there appear to be installations on moons, asteroids, and free-floating platforms that we missed entirely in our initial scans." The revelation hit the Zephyrian command crew like a series of physical blows. Earth hadn't just hidden their capabilities on the planet itself. They had transformed their entire solar system into a fortress designed to destroy invading fleets. Every moon, every asteroid belt, every major orbital position had been weaponized over the course of decades. Commander Vasquez watched the alien ships' energy patterns fluctuate as their crews struggled to comprehend the scope of human preparations. "Admiral, you're observing the result of careful planning spanning multiple generations. When we discovered your lost expedition, we realized that contact with alien civilizations was inevitable. We chose to be prepared." The tactical displays on the Titan showed the alien fleet's growing desperation. Zephyrian ships were attempting deeper scans of the solar system, only to discover additional human installations with each sweep. The humans hadn't just built defenses, they had created a layered network of interconnected facilities that could coordinate their response across astronomical distances. "Admiral Kethvar," Commander Vasquez continued, I'm transmitting current tactical assessments for your review. Perhaps understanding your situation will help you make appropriate decisions. The data package that reached the Zephyrian flagship contained an analysis that destroyed any remaining hope of military victory. Human installations throughout the solar system had been tracking the alien fleet since it entered the outer edge of the system. Every ship had been targeted by multiple weapons platforms, and their approach vectors had been predicted with mathematical precision. Science Officer Veltar reviewed the human tactical assessment with growing horror. Admiral, they've been tracking us since we passed the orbit of their 9th planet. Every movement we've made has been monitored and analyzed. Sir, they have firing solutions for our entire fleet that account for our maximum evasive capabilities. The human defensive network was a masterpiece of strategic planning that combined advanced technology with centuries of military theory. Installations were positioned to create overlapping fields of fire that would make escape impossible for any fleet that entered the system with hostile intentions. Automated systems could engage targets simultaneously from dozens of different positions, making traditional defensive maneuvers useless. Admiral Kethvar realized that his fleet had been in mortal danger from the moment they entered human space. The primitive appearance of Earth's surface installations had been a carefully constructed deception designed to lure invaders into a trap from which escape would be impossible. Commander Vasquez, he transmitted, his voice carefully controlled despite his growing fear. Your defensive preparations are extensive. However, you should understand that the Zephyrian Empire will not tolerate threats to its expansion. If your world resists integration, additional fleets will be dispatched to ensure compliance. Commander Vasquez consulted her tactical displays before responding. The human defensive network had been designed to handle exactly this type of threat. Admiral, we anticipated that possibility as well. Perhaps you should review Section 12 of our intelligence reports. Section 12 contained surveillance data from deep space reconnaissance missions that had penetrated the heart of Zephyrian territory. Human intelligence operations had identified the locations of major Imperial shipyards, fleet assembly areas, and strategic reserves. More disturbing still, the reports detailed critical vulnerabilities in Imperial infrastructure that could be exploited by properly equipped strike forces. Impossible, whispered Admiral Kethvar as he reviewed detailed schematics of classified Imperial installations. These facilities are located in the most secure sectors of our space. How did you obtain this information? Zephyrian security protocols rely heavily on technological superiority, Commander Vasquez explained. When facing opponents with inferior capabilities, your defensive strategies are quite effective. However, when facing enemies with comparable or superior technology, those same protocols become predictable weaknesses. The human intelligence reports revealed a sophisticated understanding of Imperial military doctrine that went far beyond what should have been possible for a newly contacted civilization. Earth's analysts had studied Zephyrian tactics, identified patterns in their strategic thinking, and developed countermeasures for their most effective military approaches. Navigation Officer Dexlar discovered the most disturbing revelation as he analyzed human deep space capabilities. Admiral, their reconnaissance vessels appear to be using stealth technology that renders them undetectable to our sensors. Sir, they could have ships operating throughout Imperial space without our knowledge. The psychological impact on the Zephyrian crew was precisely what human strategists had intended. By demonstrating their ability to penetrate Imperial defenses and gather intelligence throughout Zephyrian space, Earth was showing that they could threaten Imperial interests far beyond their own solar system. Admiral Kethvar found himself confronting a strategic nightmare. Earth wasn't just defending their own territory. They had developed the capability to strike at Imperial installations across multiple star systems. The primitive world he had come to conquer possessed military reach that rivaled the Empire itself. Admiral, Commander Vasquez transmitted, Earth has no interest in aggressive expansion or territorial conquest. Our defensive preparations are exactly that, defensive. However, any attempt to threaten our world or our civilization will result in appropriate responses. The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Earth possessed the capability to retaliate against Imperial aggression by striking at targets throughout Zephyrian space. Their deep space reconnaissance network could identify critical vulnerabilities and coordinate attacks that would cripple Imperial operations. Chief Engineer Reynolds monitored the Titan's weapon systems as they powered up to demonstrate human technological capabilities. Commander, all systems show optimal performance. Plasma cannon arrays are charged and ready. Quantum torpedo launchers are loaded with full spreads. Defensive shield generators are operating at maximum efficiency. Commander Vasquez authorized a limited demonstration of human firepower. Admiral, we're going to provide a small example of our defensive capabilities. Please observe the asteroid designated Alpha 7 in your tactical displays. The asteroid in question was roughly 2 kilometers in diameter, composed primarily of metallic ores that would provide a good demonstration of human weapons effectiveness. Admiral Kethvar watched his displays as the human vessel adjusted its position to target the distant rock. The Titan's main plasma cannon array fired a single coordinated burst that traveled across 50,000 kilometers of space and struck the asteroid with devastating precision. The impact released energy equivalent to several megatons of explosives, but instead of simply destroying the target, the human weapons created a controlled disintegration that reduced the entire asteroid to component particles. Fascinating, whispered Science Officer Veltar as he analyzed the weapon's effects. Admiral, their plasma-based systems are operating at energy levels that would overload our most advanced equipment. The precision targeting required for that demonstration exceeds our tactical computer's calculations. The demonstration continued as additional human installations throughout the solar system fired coordinated shots at predetermined targets. Each weapon system displayed capabilities that matched or exceeded the best that Zephyrian technology could achieve. But the real terror lay in their coordination. Admiral, his tactical officer reported with growing alarm. The human installations are demonstrating the ability to coordinate their fire across astronomical distances with no detectable communication delays. Sir, their targeting systems are somehow operating in perfect synchronization. Commander Vasquez provided the explanation that made Admiral Kethvar's worst fears seem optimistic. Admiral, our defensive network operates using quantum entangled communication systems that allow instantaneous coordination across any distance. Each installation can share targeting data and coordinate attacks in real time. The implications were staggering. Where Zephyrian fleets required careful coordination and precise timing to achieve effective combined attacks, human installations could respond as a single integrated weapon system. The defensive network's response time was limited only by the speed of their targeting computers, not by communication delays. Admiral Kethvar watched more demonstrations as human installations revealed additional capabilities. Long-range sensors showed weapons platforms emerging from asteroid belts, where they had remained hidden for decades. Defensive installations on planetary moons activated targeting systems that could engage multiple targets simultaneously. Admiral, Communications Officer Rillan reported nervously. We're receiving a transmission from the human facility on their 4th planet's largest moon. Sir, they're providing technical specifications for weapons systems that appear to be designed specifically for engaging Zephyrian vessels. The technical data contained detailed analysis of Zephyrian shield harmonics, armor compositions, and structural weaknesses. Human weapons had been designed with specific frequencies and energy patterns that would penetrate Imperial defenses with maximum effectiveness. Every shot would be optimized to cause critical system failures rather than simple hull damage. Commander Vasquez watched the alien fleet's growing panic as they realized the scope of human preparations. Admiral, our weapon systems have been designed using detailed analysis of Zephyrian technology recovered from your lost expedition. We understand your defensive capabilities better than your own engineers. The revelation was devastating. Earth hadn't just reverse-engineered Zephyrian technology. They had improved upon it while developing specific countermeasures for its weaknesses. Human weapons would be effective against Imperial defenses, while human defenses would resist Imperial attacks. Science Officer Veltar completed his analysis of the human weapons demonstrations with results that terrified the entire command crew. Admiral, their energy weapons operate using principles that we abandoned centuries ago as being too dangerous. They've apparently solved the stability problems that made such systems impractical. The human technological achievements went beyond simple reverse engineering. Earth scientists had taken abandoned Zephyrian research projects and developed them into practical weapon systems. Technologies that Imperial engineers considered too dangerous to implement had become the foundation of human military superiority. Admiral Kethvar faced the unthinkable reality that his advanced civilization had been surpassed by a species that had spent only a century studying alien technology. Human innovation had taken Zephyrian discoveries and enhanced them beyond Imperial capabilities, Commander Vasquez, he transmitted, his voice heavy with defeat. Your demonstrations have been quite thorough. The Zephyrian Empire acknowledges that Earth possesses significant defensive capabilities. However, you should understand that imperial policy does not allow for independent civilizations within our expansion zones. Commander Vasquez checked her chronometer as she prepared humanity's final demonstration. The real test of power was about to begin, and Admiral Kethvar was about to learn why Earth had spent a century preparing for exactly this conversation. Admiral, she replied, I think it's time we demonstrated why imperial policy may require some adjustment. Commander Vasquez stood before the main tactical display in the Titan's command center, watching as her weapons officers prepared for humanity's most critical demonstration. Admiral Kethvar needed to understand that Earth's defensive capabilities extended far beyond protecting their own solar system. The next few minutes would determine whether first contact resulted in peaceful coexistence or a war that would reshape this region of the galaxy. All stations report ready, announced Tactical Officer Chen, her fingers dancing over controls that managed weapons systems derived from multiple alien technologies. Long-range targeting systems are locked onto designated demonstration sites. Quantum communication networks are synchronizing firing solutions across all platforms. Admiral Kethvar watched his displays with growing alarm as human installations throughout the solar system began coordinating their activities. Energy signatures spiked simultaneously across dozens of facilities, indicating preparation for a massive demonstration of firepower. Commander Vasquez, what exactly do you intend to demonstrate? Admiral, your Empire's expansion policy assumes that primitive worlds lack the capability to threaten Imperial interests beyond their immediate vicinity, Commander Vasquez replied. We're going to show you why that assumption needs revision. The demonstration began with a coordinated strike on targets in the outer solar system. Human installations fired simultaneously at predetermined asteroids, creating a display of precision and power that defied the laws of physics as understood by Zephyrian science. Each shot traveled millions of kilometers through space to strike targets with surgical precision, demonstrating targeting capabilities that exceeded Imperial standards. Science Officer Veltar analyzed the human weapons fire with instruments that were among the most advanced in Zephyrian space. What he discovered made his hands tremble as he reported to Admiral Kethvar. Sir, their weapons are somehow compensating for gravitational interference, solar radiation pressure, and stellar magnetic fields automatically. The targeting calculations required for such precision should be impossible. Not impossible, Commander Vasquez corrected through their communication channel. Human computational systems operate using quantum-level processing derived from technologies we've encountered over the past century. Our targeting computers can calculate firing solutions that account for millions of variables simultaneously. The demonstration continued as human installations revealed their ability to coordinate attacks across vast distances without any detectable communication delays. Weapons, platforms hidden throughout the asteroid belt fired in perfect synchronization, their shots arriving at distant targets within microseconds of each other. Admiral Kethvar realized that he was witnessing capabilities that exceeded anything his empire had ever developed. Commander Vasquez, your coordination abilities are impressive, but I fail to see how this threatens Imperial interests beyond your solar system. Commander Vasquez smiled grimly as she prepared to reveal humanity's true strategic reach. Admiral, you're about to observe why Earth's defensive philosophy extends well beyond local protection. The next phase of the demonstration began as deep space sensors detected movement in the outer reaches of the solar system. Massive energy signatures appeared where no installations should have existed, revealing the presence of mobile platforms that had remained completely hidden from Zephyrian scans. Admiral, Navigation Officer, Dexlar reported with barely controlled panic. Multiple contacts are emerging from what appeared to be empty space. Sir, I count at least 20 major platforms that our sensors failed to detect. The mobile installations that revealed themselves were masterpieces of human engineering that combined advanced stealth technology with devastating firepower. Each platform was capable of independent operation across interstellar distances, carrying weapons systems designed to engage the most advanced alien civilizations. Commander Vasquez watched the alien ship's sensor readings spike as they attempted to understand what they were observing. Admiral, these mobile platforms represent humanity's deep space capability. They can operate independently for decades without resupply. and their stealth systems make them effectively invisible to most scanning technologies. The implications hit Admiral Kethvar like a series of hammer blows. Earth hadn't just built defensive installations within their solar system. They had constructed mobile weapons platforms capable of operating throughout interstellar space. Human military reach extended far beyond their home system. "How long have these platforms been operational?" he asked, though he feared the answer. "The first generation entered service 15 years ago," Commander Vasquez replied. "Current platforms incorporate improvements derived from ongoing intelligence operations throughout your empire. We've been field testing our capabilities in Zephyrian space for quite some time." The revelation was devastating. Human weapons platforms had been operating undetected throughout Imperial space for over a decade, gathering intelligence and testing their capabilities against real Imperial defenses. Earth's military reach had already penetrated deep into the heart of Zephyrian territory. Tactical Officer Chen brought up holographic displays showing the current positions of human deep space assets. "Commander, all platforms report optimal operational status. Stealth systems are functioning normally, and weapons are charged and ready. We have assets positioned within strike range of major Imperial installations." Admiral Kethvar's worst nightmares were confirmed as he reviewed the tactical data the humans were sharing. Earth's mobile platforms were positioned near critical Imperial shipyards, communication relays, and strategic reserves. Human forces could strike at the Empire's most vital installations without warning. "This is impossible," whispered Admiral Kethvar. "Our deep space monitoring networks would detect any intrusions into Imperial space. Zephyrian monitoring systems are quite effective against technologies similar to your own," Commander Vasquez acknowledged. "However, our stealth capabilities are based on principles that your empire abandoned as being too dangerous to implement. We've found ways to make those principles practical." The human stealth technology operated using controlled space-time distortions that bent sensor waves around their platforms. To Zephyrian instruments, the areas occupied by human installations appeared to contain nothing but empty space. The technology was so advanced that Imperial sensors would detect gravitational anomalies before identifying the actual platforms. Science Officer Veltar completed his analysis of human stealth capabilities, with results that terrified the entire command crew. "Admiral, their platforms are creating localized distortions in space-time itself. Our sensors aren't failing to detect them. The platforms are existing partially outside normal space." The technological achievement represented advances in physics that the Zephyrian Empire had considered theoretically impossible. Human scientists had not only mastered space-time manipulation but had weaponized it to create military advantages that were previously unimaginable. Commander Vasquez authorized the next phase of the demonstration, as human platforms throughout Zephyrian space revealed their positions simultaneously. "Admiral, we're transmitting current locations of our deep space assets for your review. Perhaps this will help clarify Earth's strategic position." The tactical display that appeared on Admiral Kethvar's screens showed human platforms positioned throughout the core regions of Imperial space. Weapons installations orbited major Zephyrian worlds, monitoring stations watched critical military facilities, and mobile strike forces waited within range of the Empire's most important strategic assets. "How many?" Admiral Kethvar whispered as he counted the platforms revealed on his displays. "Currently operational platforms number in the hundreds," Commander Vasquez replied. "Additional assets are produced continuously by automated manufacturing facilities located throughout this region of the galaxy. Our deep space capability grows stronger every year." The revelation destroyed any remaining hope Admiral Kethvar had of maintaining Imperial superiority. Earth hadn't just built defenses. They had created an interstellar military presence that rivaled the Empire itself. Human forces could threaten Imperial interests across dozens of star systems simultaneously. Chief Engineer Reynolds reported from his station as the Titan's advanced systems monitored the demonstration. "Commander, all deep space platforms are reporting. Successful position reveals. Imperial forces are tracking approximately 60% of our assets, which is consistent with expected detection rates." The casual mention of expected detection rates revealed another terrifying aspect of human strategic planning. Earth's military analysts had calculated exactly how many platforms would be detected during any given operation, ensuring that sufficient hidden assets remained to complete their missions regardless of Imperial countermeasures. Admiral Kethvar realized that his empire had been infiltrated so thoroughly that human forces could likely disable critical Imperial infrastructure before Zephyrian commands could respond. Commander Vasquez, your positioning of assets throughout Imperial space constitutes an act of war. Admiral, our platforms have been operating in your space for over a decade without taking any hostile actions. Commander Vasquez replied calmly, we've observed Imperial operations, tested our capabilities against your defenses, and gathered intelligence on your strategic planning. However, we've never interfered with Imperial activities. The distinction was important. Human forces had demonstrated their ability to threaten Imperial interests without actually doing so. Earth had positioned itself to wage war against the Zephyrian Empire while maintaining the legal and moral position that they were acting defensively. Communications Officer Rilon discovered the most disturbing aspect of human strategic planning as he analyzed their deep space networks. Admiral, the human platforms are sharing real-time intelligence about all Imperial military movements. They have comprehensive surveillance coverage of our most classified operations. The psychological impact was devastating. Every Imperial military operation for the past decade had been monitored by human intelligence networks. Earth knew about classified fleet movements, strategic planning sessions, and resource allocations that were restricted to the highest levels of Imperial command. Admiral Kethvar faced the unthinkable reality that his empire's security had been completely compromised by a civilization that had appeared primitive just hours earlier. Commander Vasquez, your intelligence operations represent massive violations of Imperial sovereignty. Admiral, your empire's intelligence operations have been violating the sovereignty of hundreds of civilizations for centuries. Commander Vasquez replied, Earth is simply applying the same strategic principles that your empire uses. The difference is that we've been more successful at avoiding detection. The moral argument was unassailable. Earth had used the Zephyrian Empire's own strategic doctrine against them, but with technological superiority that made their operations invisible to Imperial defenses. Human intelligence networks had accomplished what no civilization in Imperial history had managed. Science Officer Veltar completed his analysis of human deep space capabilities with conclusions that changed everything. Admiral, their platforms represent a technological achievement that exceeds our greatest accomplishments. The energy requirements alone should make such operations impossible, but they've apparently solved fundamental problems in power generation and distribution. The human technological superiority extended beyond individual systems to encompass entire fields of physics that the Zephyrian Empire had never mastered. Earth scientists had achieved breakthroughs in energy manipulation, space-time physics, and quantum engineering that made their military superiority inevitable. Commander Vasquez watched the alien ship's energy patterns fluctuate as their crews struggled to process the scope of human capabilities. The demonstration had achieved its purpose. Admiral Kethvar now understood that Earth was not just defending their solar system. They were positioned to wage interstellar war against the Empire itself. Admiral, she transmitted, I believe this completes our demonstration of Earth's defensive capabilities. As you can see, our civilization is quite capable of protecting our interests. The question now is whether your empire chooses peaceful coexistence or continued aggressive expansion. Admiral Kethvar looked at his tactical displays showing human assets positioned throughout Imperial space, capable of striking at critical installations without warning. The primitive world his fleet had come to conquer had become the greatest threat the Zephyrian Empire had ever faced. The choice was no longer whether Earth would submit to Imperial authority. The choice was whether the Empire would survive humanity's response to continued aggression. Admiral Kethvar stood motionless on the bridge of his flagship, staring at tactical displays that showed the complete transformation of galactic power dynamics. In the span of a few hours, the Zephyrian Empire had gone from confident conquerors to potential victims of a civilization they had grossly underestimated. The silence on his bridge was broken only by the quiet hum of systems that suddenly seemed primitive compared to human technology. Admiral, his communications officer whispered, we're receiving priority transmissions from Imperial Command. They're demanding immediate reports on our progress with planetary subjugation. The irony was bitter. Imperial Command expected routine reports of successful conquest, but Admiral Kethvar faced the impossible task of explaining that the primitive world they had come to conquer possessed military capabilities that exceeded the Empire's greatest achievements. Commander Vasquez monitored the alien fleet's communications intercepts while her crew maintained weapon locks on every Zephyrian vessel. Human intelligence networks had been monitoring Imperial transmissions for decades, and she could see the growing panic in military commands throughout Zephyrian space, as reports of Earth's capabilities filtered through their networks. "Admiral," she transmitted, "I suggest you consider your response to Imperial command carefully. Earth's intelligence networks are monitoring Imperial communications, and we're aware that additional fleets are being prepared for deployment to this system." The casual mention of human intelligence penetration sent another wave of shock through the Zephyrian command crew. Their supposedly secure communications were being monitored in real time by an enemy that seemed to possess unlimited technological advantages. Admiral Kethvar activated his personal communication channel, knowing that human forces would intercept every word, but having no choice. "Imperial Command. This is Admiral Kethvar reporting from the Sol system. Situation has developed complexities that require immediate strategic reassessment. The target civilization possesses advanced defensive capabilities." The response from Imperial Command came within minutes, the anger in High Admiral Zenthak's voice clearly audible despite the quantum encryption. "Admiral Kethvar, your report is incomprehensible. Preliminary scans showed primitive technology, insufficient to resist a single escort vessel. Explain your inability to complete subjugation procedures." Commander Vasquez listened to the Imperial exchange while reviewing tactical displays that showed human forces positioned throughout Zephyrian space. The Empire's leadership still didn't understand the scope of the threat they faced. "Admiral, perhaps a more detailed explanation would be helpful." "Admiral Kethvar," she transmitted on an open channel that Imperial Command would intercept. "This is Commander Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Space Force. Your Admiral is correct that this situation requires strategic reassessment. Earth respectfully suggests that the Zephyrian Empire reconsider its expansion policies in light of new information." The silence from Imperial Command lasted nearly 30 seconds as their leadership processed the impossible reality that a primitive world was communicating directly with their highest military authorities. When High Admiral Zenthak responded, his voice carried a rage that had been building for centuries of unchallenged Imperial expansion. "Unknown alien vessel, you are addressing the supreme military authority of the Zephyrian Empire. Your world will submit to Imperial authority, or face annihilation. No primitive civilization has ever successfully resisted Imperial expansion." Commander Vasquez consulted her tactical displays before responding. The moment had arrived for humanity's final demonstration of power. "High Admiral, we've prepared a comprehensive presentation of Earth's capabilities for your review. Perhaps this information will help your empire make informed decisions about future policies." The data package that reached Imperial Command contained intelligence reports that would reshape their understanding of galactic power dynamics. Human deep space reconnaissance had gathered detailed information about every major Imperial installation, identified critical vulnerabilities in their strategic infrastructure, and developed targeting plans that could cripple Imperial military capabilities within hours. High Admiral Zenthak reviewed the human intelligence reports with growing horror. The primitive civilization that Admiral Kethvar had been sent to conquer possessed surveillance networks that had penetrated the most classified levels of Imperial operations. Earth knew about secret weapons projects, strategic reserves, and military planning that were restricted to the Empire's highest leadership. "Impossible," he whispered as he studied detailed schematics of installations that were supposed to be invisible to enemy surveillance. "How did they obtain this information?" Commander Vasquez provided the explanation that would haunt Imperial leadership for decades to come. "High Admiral, your Empire's security protocols are quite effective against civilizations with inferior technology. However, when facing opponents with superior capabilities, those same protocols become predictable weaknesses that can be systematically exploited." The human intelligence penetration was so complete that they possessed real-time information about Imperial fleet movements, resource allocations, and strategic planning. Earth surveillance networks could track individual ships across interstellar distances and predict Imperial responses to various scenarios with mathematical precision. Admiral Kethvar watched his displays as additional human capabilities were revealed. Mobile weapons platforms throughout Imperial space had begun coordinated movements that demonstrated their ability to strike at critical targets simultaneously. The Empire's most vital installations were within range of human weapons designed specifically to counter Zephyrian defenses. "Admiral?" Science Officer Veltar reported with trembling voice. Analysis indicates that human weapons platforms could disable our primary shipyards, communication networks, and strategic reserves before we could mount effective countermeasures. Sir, they could cripple our military capabilities within hours. The strategic reality was undeniable. Earth had positioned forces throughout Imperial space that could launch coordinated strikes against targets that would take decades to replace. Human weapons were designed to cause maximum strategic damage while minimizing their own exposure to retaliation. High Admiral Zenthak attempted to regain control of the situation through threats that had worked for centuries. Earth vessel. The Zephyrian Empire commands military forces across dozens of star systems. Your single world cannot threaten the combined might of our civilization. Commander Vasquez authorized the demonstration that would end Imperial delusions of superiority. High Admiral, observe the simultaneous activation of human assets throughout your territory. Across Zephyrian space, hundreds of human weapons platforms revealed their positions by powering up targeting systems and charging weapon arrays. Imperial monitoring stations detected energy signatures that had been invisible moments before, revealing the scope of human military penetration. Major Imperial installations found themselves targeted by weapons they couldn't detect until activation. Shipyards that produced the Empire's most advanced vessels discovered human platforms positioned to destroy their manufacturing capabilities. Communication relays that coordinated Imperial operations detected targeting systems that could sever their connections throughout Imperial space. High Admiral, reported the Imperial Intelligence Service Director, his voice heavy with defeat. We're detecting human weapons platforms near every major installation in the core sectors. Sir, they could destroy our strategic infrastructure before we could respond. The psychological impact on Imperial leadership was exactly what human strategists had intended. Earth had demonstrated not only their ability to threaten Imperial interests, but their current positioning to destroy the Empire's military capabilities with coordinated precision strikes. Commander Vasquez watched the Imperial fleet's energy signatures as their crews realized they were facing an enemy that had achieved complete strategic superiority. High Admiral, Earth has no interest in destroying the Zephyrian Empire. We simply want your civilization to understand that expansion into our territory is inadvisable. The offer was reasonable, but High Admiral Zenthak struggled with centuries of Imperial doctrine that didn't allow for independent civilizations. Earth vessel. Imperial expansion has continued for millennia. No single world has ever forced policy changes. High Admiral, Commander Vasquez replied. No single world has ever possessed the capabilities that Earth has demonstrated. Your Empire's expansion policies were developed for encounters with inferior civilizations. Those policies require adjustment when facing superior technology. The admission was devastating to Imperial pride, but the evidence was undeniable. Earth possessed military capabilities that exceeded Imperial achievements across multiple fields of technology. Human forces had demonstrated superior weapons, defenses, intelligence gathering, and strategic coordination. Admiral Kethvar received new orders from Imperial Command that reflected their growing understanding of the situation. Admiral, you are authorized to negotiate withdrawal terms with Earth forces. Imperial Command requires guarantees that human forces will not interfere with Imperial operations outside the Sol system. Commander Vasquez consulted with President Morrison through quantum communication networks that connected all human installations. The response came within minutes, carrying the authority of Earth's entire leadership structure. Admiral Kethvar, Earth accepts the principle of non-interference in Imperial operations outside our declared territory. However, we require reciprocal guarantees that the Zephyrian Empire will respect Earth's sovereignty and territorial claims. The negotiations that followed established new protocols for interaction between advanced civilizations. Earth's territorial claims extended throughout their solar system and included corridors for peaceful expansion to nearby star systems. The Zephyrian Empire agreed to respect these boundaries in exchange for human non-interference in Imperial affairs. Admiral, Commander Vasquez transmitted as the negotiations concluded. Earth appreciates the Empire's willingness to resolve this situation through diplomacy. We look forward to peaceful coexistence between our civilizations. The withdrawal of the Zephyrian fleet proceeded under careful human observation. Earth's deep space platforms monitored every ship as they departed the solar system, ensuring compliance with the negotiated agreements. Imperial vessels that had arrived with conquest in mind left with profound respect for human capabilities. Admiral Kethvar submitted his final report to Imperial Command as his fleet reached the edge of human territory. High Admiral, Earth represents a fundamental shift in galactic power dynamics. This civilization possesses technological capabilities that exceed our own and strategic reach that threatens our core interests. I strongly recommend that future encounters with advanced civilizations be approached with diplomatic, rather than military solutions. The impact of humanity's revelation echoed throughout Zephyrian space as word spread of the Empire's first diplomatic defeat. Military commanders who had never questioned Imperial superiority found themselves studying human tactical innovations. Scientists who had considered their technology unmatched began research projects aimed at understanding human achievements. Commander Vasquez stood on the observation deck of the UES Titan as it submerged back into the Pacific depths where it had waited for decades. The successful resolution of first contact had established humanity's position in galactic civilization. But she knew this was only the beginning. "Commander," reported Navigation Officer Singh, "all deep space platforms are resuming covert operations. Intelligence networks report normal Imperial activities resuming throughout Zephyrian space. The human surveillance networks that had revealed themselves during the crisis returned to their invisible monitoring of galactic affairs. Earth's true strategic position remained hidden, with only a fraction of their capabilities exposed during the negotiations." President Morrison addressed the world's population from the United Nations headquarters, explaining the successful resolution of humanity's first contact with alien civilization. "Citizens of Earth, today we have taken our place among the stars. The universe knows that humanity will defend its freedom and sovereignty against any threat." What the president didn't mention publicly was the full scope of human preparations for future encounters. Earth's defensive networks continued expanding throughout the galaxy, preparing for contacts with civilizations that might prove even more challenging than the Zephyrian Empire. Deep space reconnaissance missions launched toward distant star systems where other advanced civilizations might pose future threats. Automated construction facilities began building new classes of weapons platforms designed to handle threats that Earth hadn't yet encountered. The galaxy had been warned. Humanity had emerged from their isolation not as victims to be conquered but as a power to be respected. Earth's transformation from primitive world to galactic superpower was complete, and the universe would never underestimate human capabilities again. Commander Vasquez smiled as she reviewed reports from human installations throughout the galaxy. First contact had indeed turned to terror, but the terror belonged to those who had underestimated humanity's resolve and preparation. The age of human expansion was about to begin.